Okay, so this video is going to go over the second page of the 4-2 notes. We are going to do these in class, but if you are absent, you can watch this video, or if you just want to get a head start, this video will be up for you as well. So we're going to start with number 4, and at this point, we need to start making the statements on our own and the reasons on our own. So remember how I said before, we have some hints here and some things to look for. Remember, one of them was the first thing is always going to be given. So for the statements, I'm going to number this number 1. That'll help us keep it organized. And we are just going to rewrite what is given. So everything right here is given. So we just need to transfer that and write this whole thing over here. So I'm just going to do that now. And I'm going to put my reason, I'm going to put number 1 again so I keep them lined up, is given. So now I'm just going to go back into my triangle and I'm going to mark everything that they tell me. So LT is congruent to TR, and then angle ILT, which is this one, is congruent to angle ETR, and then IT is parallel to ER. So remember, parallel, we put the little arrows. It doesn't mean congruent, it just means parallel. Okay, so right now I only have an angle and a side. So I need some more information to be able to prove these congruent, right? So I'm going to use these parallel lines to prove that. So I'm going to extend it out. I'm just going to use this highlighter here. I'm going to extend out my parallel lines, and then this bottom line right here is going to be my transversal. So this is when we're doing this, looking for parallel lines and transversals, we're going to use that here. And so you might need to turn it to be able to see how this is going to work, but this angle right here is congruent to this angle here. And that is because those are corresponding angles. If you remember our rules from before with the parallel and transversals. So I'm going to write number 2 is that ITL is congruent to angle ERT. And that is because they are corresponding angles. Now, I have enough information to prove it, right? I'm going to write on the side here what I have. So like right here, I have an angle that's proven. And then right here, I have another angle. Oh, sorry, this first one's a side. And then down here, I have another angle. So I have an angle, and a side. And my order of them in my triangles is angle, side, angle. And so my proof is going to be angle, side, angle. And then I just write out my proof. So that is the first one. Let's go on to number 2. So again, I'm going to start with what is given. So number 1, RQ is congruent to RS because it is given. Okay, now let's look for some things. There's a few things that I could prove next. I'm going to go with the reflexive property. So RT is congruent to itself. Remember, that's one of the things up here as the hint is always look for the reflexive property. See if there's anything that can be congruent to itself. Okay, so now I have a side and a side, and I need something else to be able to prove that it is congruent. So another thing that I see here is that I have a right angle down here, and if I have a right angle there, then this one over here also has to be a right angle, because right angles are going to be congruent when they are next to each other like that. So I will say number 3 can be angle RTS is congruent to angle RTQ. And that is because right angles are congruent. So now I have an angle, a side, and a side. But since this is a right triangle, I actually have a hypotenuse and a leg here. So now that I use this right triangle congruence to first off prove that they're both right triangles, now I can use hypotenuse leg as my theorem. So this would be my hypotenuse and this would be my leg. And then this angle just helps us prove that they are indeed both right triangles. So I'll write out my congruence. Okay, let's go on to number 6. So once again, let's start with our given. And yes, you actually have to write out everything. I know it can be tedious just rewriting it, but it is part of our proofs. So we are given that HK bisects IL. So that means that it's cutting IL in half. And then we know that H is congruent to K, because again, it is given. So the first thing that I notice here is that because HK is bisecting IL, that means that these parts right here are congruent. Now it's not the other way around, because this is the line that is bisecting the other one. So that means that these ones, the one that is bisected, is congruent. So for number 2, I'm going to say that IJ is congruent to JL. And that is because it is the definition of a bisector. Okay, let's see what else we can draw conclusions about. One thing that we need to always look for, remember, is vertical angles. So angle IJH is congruent to angle KJL because they are vertical angles. Now, I'm going to write to the side. Let's see what we have here. We have a angle here, a side here, and an angle here. Now I need to see what order they go in. So I have angle, angle, side. So my final reason is angle, angle, side. And then we have one more, number 7. So again, I'm going to start with given. Remember, this means perpendicular, so AB is perpendicular to DC. And then CD bisects the angle ACB. So that means it's cutting that angle in half this time, not the line. So that is our given information. Now there's not a whole lot I can exactly mark yet, just because they tell us that we have perpendicular and bisectors. There's nothing really to mark yet. We're going to have to write more statements to prove. So let's start with angle. ADC is congruent to angle BDC. And that is because that is the definition of a perpendicular bisector. So it forms two 90-degree angles. And then I see the reflexive property right here. So CD is congruent to CD. Reflexive property. And then finally, we want to do something with the CD that bisects ACB. And because it bisects it, it just cuts it in half. And so that is just the definition of a bisector. So again, let's see what we have. We have an angle here, and then we have a side, and we have another angle. And our order is angle, side, angle. So that is our final statement and reason there. And we can prove that these triangles are congruent. So that is the last of these notes. Important things to remember, again, just look for all of these different things to see what you can prove. And the first statement is always going to be what's given. Look for those parallel lines and transversals if you can. Bisectors are going to cut in half. And then make sure that you're putting your reasons in order. Like, make sure this doesn't say angle, angle, side, and that it says angle, side, angle, because it has to match the order that's in the picture.